Now I've got a picture and we're recording. Woohoo!
I'll tell you what, tick, 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 tick. We're there now. We're in. We're cooking with gas. We're not supposed to cook with gas. We're cooking with
Absolutely. Absolutely.
solar generated electricity.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So thank you. Thank you for being available to speak to me. I know it's early in the morning for you in the UK.
Yeah, no, not as early as it should have been. But anyway, we're here, and it's my
We're here.
pleasure, Jenny. Thank you. Thank you so
That's
much
fine.
for agreeing to be a Coastrek ambassador. We're
I'm
so
looking
excited
forward
to
to
have you.
this. Yeah. No, it's going to be very
Yeah, it'd be
exciting.
amazing.
Yeah, very exciting. Yes, it's good.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm very jealous of you going off to the Dolomites for a bit of rock climbing.
Oh,
So
I know. I've never been to the Dolomites, and it's been on my bucket list for a long time. So, yeah, I'm
likewise.
very, very excited. Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be
it's
amazing.
meant to be stunning. So I'm sure you have a
Yes.
wonderful time.
Oh, yes, I'll be definitely making everyone jealous with my photos as soon as possible.
Yes. Yeah. So
It will be amazing to talk about actually the incredible coast of WA and how extraordinary that area that we're going to be walking along is. And really, it's up to you, I guess, what you think would be of interest to to your audience. Because I can talk till the cows come home about, the health benefits of hiking and getting into nature and connecting with friends and, all of those wonderful things that you and I both know,
yeah, yeah,
both mental and physical health. So that's certainly, I think, something that, that could be really interesting. And some of the
sure.
incredible stories of transformation that we hear when we entice a woman and her friends, and men as well. We do include men, but when we entice someone to take that challenge of Coastrek, which is now around Australia, we're very excited that that is actually coast to coast, and get them moving. Within 5 to 10 minutes of being out in nature and moving, you start to feel, the limbic system kicks in, and you start to feel joy, and your problems suddenly become less overwhelming. So yeah, it's a really incredible thing. But we couldn't be more excited about the Margaret River coast. It's idyllic. It's spectacular. It's everything. It's wild flowers and whales and wine and women and all those good things. So yeah, we're thrilled.
All the important W's are there.
Yes, all the
Absolutely.
important W's. So yes, and as you know, being an ambassador, we're going to be heading over to the Margaret River on the
Yes.
27th of October,
Yes.
and so yeah, it's a pretty exciting time ahead.
I think a lot of people here in WA will be very excited about doing the Margaret River Coast Trek because the particular path that we'll be following along is well known to many of us living here in WA, but it's not something that we all get the opportunity to actually engage in and walk part of. Some people, go for the whole 135 kilometers, and that's fantastic. But I
Yes,
think doing it like this in a sort of manageable short piece just gives you that glimpse of the diversity of
mm-hmm.
the landscape. I mean, you're varying from walking along the actual beach itself to then finding yourself on top of a cliff. There's
Yes,
wonderful changing flora as well. The trees that you see in some places are bent over by the wind, and then in other places you've got this low, thick scrub with all these little birds and mammals and insects hiding in. It's so diverse, and
yes,
it's wonderful because as you go along, you're exploring all this, and if it's not familiar territory to you, it's a voyage of discovery. It's actually
yes.
quite lovely to see birds that you don't normally see flying around, or small marsupials or whatever hopping around. It's just great,
Yep.
and it adds to that good feeling at the same time when you're doing something that has such a strong purpose to it, for other
Yes.
people, but you're also doing it for yourself. So it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the environment because we are connecting to the world around us. It's a
Yep.
win for the people that we're supporting, you know, in the realm of heart health. And of course, we're doing it for ourselves too. And I think probably a fourth factor is, you know, we're doing it with the other people who are participating in the same event. And I think the joy of being in something of a large group. I mean, I know we've got small teams of 4 or individuals, but it's the collective movement, which I think has that added power. It's really quite an incredible feeling when, you know, people say, you can start now, and you go, oh, yes, and off we go.
Yes, and the beautiful word pictures. Gosh, you just brought that trail to life so beautifully then. And you're right, that camaraderie, you know, once you start your training, and we're very, very, very encouraging. It's, you know, it's for us, it's an essential thing that you do. Ideally, the 12-week training program, you know, if not as much as you can do. And most of our trekkers, we think, start training around 12 weeks out. Some kind of wait, and then, I must, and then, you know, sort of 6 to 8 weeks out they start. But the training program, often our trekkers talk to us after the event and say, look, I had an incredible day. It was incredible scenery, etc. Actually, the thing they most often love the most is the talking nonstop for, you know, 5 to 8 hours. It's like, and, you know, the stream of consciousness conversations that come out, like it's amazing what gets chatted and revealed. Everything from the superficial to the deep come out, you know, when you're walking side by side with someone. So that's quite magical. But with the training, in the lead up, often the trekkers say they enjoyed the training more than the actual day, because quite often our trekkers will get together with their friends on a Sunday morning. You know, many of them are mums with children, and it's a great excuse to get their partner to look after the kids, and they get out on a Sunday morning and they go and do a beautiful walk in nature, and then they go out for brunch. It's like the Sunday morning, you know, it's a bit like church, you know, it's this connection for a purpose. They know they're doing something really good for themselves and, as you say, for the heart health of others, and that's leading towards getting them prepared so that they have a great event day. So not that I don't think they enjoy event day, but sometimes the event day can be, you know, it's a big day out. And if you're not used to walking 35 kilometres or even 20 kilometres on natural, you know, rough surfaces, as you described, up and down, and there's sand and there's all those challenges along the way, it really can be, can be that sense of, like, by the time you cross the finishing line, it's like, it's that mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration all at once. But yes, the camaraderie of that community is something really, really, truly special, and we're really proud of that. It's really cool.
And I think you're right in that the training is part of the critical path, because, and especially if you are able to sort of meet up with your team members and say, okay, girls, we're locking in these times each week. Do this. It's that preparation pace which builds the anticipation for the day itself. And we're always told it's the journey, not to the actual destination. And I suppose the big day out is the destination, but it's the journey towards getting to that big day, which I think is just as important. And I think the camaraderie that comes away is long lasting, long after the event, because you've put in the time and the effort to get to know each other better. And even along the route, you get to meet new people and you create new friendships. And I find it's remarkable how all of a sudden, you know, you start with sort of 3 other friends, and by the time you're finished, you've got another 200.
It's
wonderful.
Yeah, very special. Very, very special. So yes, we're very excited. And also, you know, as you mentioned, we're raising money for heart health. And in addition, like, we're nearly up to already $100,000 raised, and you know, we couldn't be more delighted. But look, in addition to the benefits of bringing in those funds, which go to the Heart Foundation to support women in research in heart health, to increase equality in heart health, what I think many of our trekkers and I didn't know before we joined in partnership with the Heart Foundation is that women, when they experience symptoms of heart disease, experience those symptoms differently to men. And historically, our medical scientists and our researchers have studied, they start the research often with male mice, would you believe?
I do believe, yes, it's true.
Because the male mice are more obedient. And of course, you want obedient mice if you're doing research. So I totally understand why we do that. But that means that right from the very beginning of the inception of the research, a lot of it is based on male physiology. And it's only in more recent years, and I've been learning this, that the researchers and the doctors have recognized that the female physiology is quite different. And it's certainly different when it comes to heart disease. And, you would probably know this as a doctor, that women's symptoms are different to men's. And sometimes, or quite often, we hear they are incorrectly diagnosed. And one of our Coastrek ambassadors, a wonderful woman called Jen Tucker, she's in her late 30s, and she was one of those women who went to her doctor. She was tired. She was a bit breathless. She was a fit young mum. So she was kind of like, this is sort of strange, like I'm experiencing things that like what's going on? And the doctor kind of, had a chat, and he said, look, you're just stressed. You just, just take more time off. You're working too hard. You're working too long. You just got to, get on the couch a bit more, and just, take a Bex and a cup of tea and a good lie down, that kind of thing. And, pat, off you go. So she went home and she was like, oh, okay, come on, darling, I need, Anyway, she tried to, reduce the stress and work a little bit less. And about 3 months later, she had another episode of, she was walking along the street with her children, I think one in a pram and one little toddler. And she said she was just overwhelmed by this breathlessness. And she said she was so thrown that she had to sit down in the gutter and kind of go, oh, what's wrong with me? This is something really wrong with me. And so she got someone must have seen her and came and said, do you need help? And she said, yes, I do. And she was taken to her doctor, and he kind of squeezed her straight in, and he said, you need to go immediately to see a cardiologist. And so she went to see the cardiologist. The cardiologist was like, oh, you're 36 years old, you're in really good health. I'm sure there's not a problem. So he said, but we will check you in to have some testing. And so she goes into the testing, and she kind of gets connected up to all these machines, and everything's all, by this time she's over the episode and seems all right. And she's in the bed in the hospital, and the cardiologist comes in and says, look, would you mind if we brought some students in, because you're very low risk, we want them to see how these tests work, and we think you'd be, if you're comfortable with that. She goes, sure. So the bunch of students all file in, and she's lying in the hospital bed connected up to all these machines and all these screens. And she says everyone's sort of chatting and it's all very jovial. And she said all of a sudden the room goes silent. And she looks at the cardiologist and goes, what just happened? And the cardiologist said, I'm really sorry, Jen, but we've just realised that your artery is 95% blocked and we have to do surgery immediately. Are you okay with that? And she was like, oh, like just imagine, like a fit young mum who just thinks this is all just a bit of a routine test and I'm all fine. So anyway, she had the surgery, and of course it was life-saving surgery. So she's become this amazing, ambassador for sharing this story for women that, if you are feeling a bit tired and a bit breathless, don't just write it off as stress. If your doctor sends you home, say, look, can we have a look more deeply here? So, like, we're not suggesting that we turn into our own doctors at all, but it is an interesting thing, and an area that we know not yet enough about, and it's something that we're very excited and proud to be supporting, because the research that the Heart Foundation is doing and supporting in this area is going to help all of our trekkers and all Australians and all Australian women to increase their awareness and increase that knowledge, so that women do get the help they need, because it can be life-threatening.
Absolutely. And that story that you shared is quite astounding and quite scary, because, as you say, a fit young woman with presumably very little sort of risk factor to find herself in that situation is quite sort of impactful, because it highlights, I've heard a number of stories of women who've shared similar stories where they were just a bit off. They just didn't feel quite right. And as you said, it was the fatigue, the unusual onset of fatigue or breathlessness. And you think, well, you know, have I got a virus or something like that? And being women, we very often dismiss it.
We do.
Because, you know, we're busy, we've got other things to do, blah, 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 blah. And because it's not the universally thought of crushing chest pain radiating down our arms or up into our jaws, we dismiss the possibility that it could be something like heart disease. And so, yes, it often gets missed or it's diagnosed late in women. And the other thing, which I think hopefully is now changing, is that even in the event of a woman being diagnosed as having a possible cardiac event, they often end up in a general ward rather than in the coronary specialist unit.
Right.
And of course, that has an impact on management and recovery because they're not necessarily receiving the specialist care they need at the time.
Wow.
So we do need to be better aware of, you know, what can be going wrong with this and not just to accept. I mean, I'm a doctor, so I can say this. I mean, doctors don't always get everything right. So, and if you're not convinced that your doctor's got it quite right, get another opinion or take yourself into the emergency department because, you know, it's better to err on the side of caution sometimes when you know something isn't right, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yes. Yeah. No, 100%. And look, getting back to more exciting, happier things.
Yes.
As much as that is important as that is, the other thing I wanted to say about our Coastrek Margaret River event is actually where it's located. Because as you pointed out, there's 135 kilometres, Cape Leeuwin to Cape Natural East, beautiful, rugged, wild, open, fabulous coast. But we've selected a piece that we think is going to be very accessible to not just Margaret River residents, but to you know, the men, women and families of Perth. And the area, so if you've chosen the 35-kilometre event, and it's not too late to sign up, by the way, but if you've chosen the 35-kilometre event, you're going to be starting at Yallingup Beach, which, as you know, is a very beautiful, gorgeous, iconic spot. And if you're doing the 20-kilometre event, you're going to be starting at the Cape Natural East Lighthouse. So again, like, wow, iconic, beautiful, amazing. And whichever one you choose, you're going to be coming into Dunsborough, to that beautiful little village of Dunsborough, around sunset, twilight. If you stop too many times and, you know, you have a little picnic on the way, or worse, drinks, like some people do, stop for Friday night drinks. We've had coast-trekkers do that. Please don't do that. You will come in after dark, but we're hoping that people will kind of keep moving. The idea is to have this beautiful walk, you know, day out, but not, you know, not stop for a picnic. Keep moving and get to Dunsborough for twilight. We'll give you a glass of Prosecco as you cross the finishing line and put a medal around your neck and give you a big cheer, because it really is, you know, for most of our coast trekkers, a really great achievement and a great sense of accomplishment to have done, you know, such a long walk continuously. You know, whether it's 20 or 35 kilometres, it's a long way, and you know, definitely a wonderful achievement. So, yeah, pretty exciting, you know, to be part of it. And Jen, we couldn't be more thrilled that you're joining us.
I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. And you know what? I think it's one of these type of events that once you've done it once, you want to do it again. And I know you've got somebody, I can't remember her name, who's done multiple coast treks around Australia. And I just think, how brilliant is that? Because I think it is potentially a little bit addictive. You know, when you're having so much fun, you're doing something good for the, you know, the planet, the people and yourself. What could be better than that, really?
Absolutely. And the lady that you mentioned, her name is Anne Jenkins, and she's done 20 coast treks, which is just phenomenal. And together with her team, she's raised over, I think it's close to $60,000, which is really extraordinary. And for, you know, for several different charities, because we have, we do change our charity partner every 5 or 10 years, because we really like to share the love around. But this time we're with, you know, with the Heart Foundation, as you know, and we're really proud of that because we think that's very, very timely right now. But over the years since Coastrek began, I think nearly 15 years ago, we've raised nearly $50 million. So we're really proud of our coast trekkers. They work really hard, inviting their friends to donate to the charitable cause, and we're really hoping that that our coast trekkers in the Margaret River will do the same, and I'm sure that they will. We've got some wonderful support from the local communities as well. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting day on the 27th of October, Jen.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And I'm astounded. It's been 15 years since you started this. And I remember meeting you. It must have been just in the first few years, long time ago. You probably don't remember meeting me at that time. And I remember at that time thinking, what a wonderful thing to be doing. Shame it's over on the East Coast, because how good would it be to have something in WA? So we've had to wait a little while, but now it's a reality.
Slow.
Yes, so
we've been a bit slow, and interesting. I'm also this is hot off the press and not yet public knowledge, but I'm going to let you know, you and your listeners know, Jen, a little secret is that I'm currently in the UK. And we have just signed up with a charity partner in the UK to bring our event series to the UK. So we're really excited. There's beautiful coastlines all over the world, and we would love to be spread far and wide. But it's great to be to be coast to coast in Australia. And our newest event in our Australian Coast Trek series is in Canberra, and of course Canberra doesn't have. It's not on the coast. So
it's not on the coast. No, it's not.
How do you do a coast trek when there's no coast? But we've gone for the most stunningly beautiful, as close to coast as you get in Canberra, which is the beautiful Lake Burley Griffin. And our trekkers in Canberra will be doing a complete circumnavigation of Lake Burley Griffin, which just happens to be 30 kilometres. So we're really thrilled and really excited to bring Coast Trek to Canberra as well. And can't wait to see how that goes. I don't know do you know Canberra? Do you know that setting, that beautiful setting? I
do know that setting, and I've walked a little way around that beautiful lake, but how marvelous to be able to do the whole thing. That'd be brilliant.
To do the whole circumnavigation. So and that's a bit of a segue here, but when I was in Canberra recently, practicing the walk, I discovered that it was actually a woman who was very instrumental in designing that beautiful lake. We think of it as Walter Burley Griffin. Most of us, may know that. But it was actually his wife that was like the secret weapon behind the scenes, who was the artist who envisaged that beautiful thing. I just love that connection. Like, that was women's work.
Wow,
it is so
fantastic.
Beautiful. So so yes, maybe once you've got a taste for Coast Trek, you might decide at some point to link that in with a trip to walk around the lake in Canberra.
I'd be up for that for sure. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Di, for the opportunity to chat with you about Coast Trek, and especially about Coast Trek WA that's coming up.
Yes.
I know there's some very excited women and probably a couple of men who are very much looking forward to this day. And we're out there already. We're getting ready. And we're looking to raise funds for heart health for women, of course. And thank you for making this all possible.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you so much for jumping in and taking the challenge with your friends. It's just amazing. And I wish you a wonderful, fabulous, gorgeous, exciting, exhilarating day out on that beautiful coast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Di. Bye.
Thanks, Jen.